Firstly, my dear friends, I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. We have a very interesting subject. The topic is the sun, the moon, and the human spirit and their sacred connection. Very fascinating topic. And for millennia, scriptures and cultures across the world have shown the sun and the moon as being deeply connected to the human spirit. Today we will explore what sacred texts, universal beliefs, and modern quantum science reveal about this profound relationship. It's very strong, it's very powerful, and very real. And while we may already know much of it, it's just good for us to encapsulate it all together. Now, because through this understanding, once we acquire this understanding, we may be better equipped to harness these cosmic connections with the sun and the moon to nurture our spiritual growth, our inner balance, and even our material well-being. Now, what made me pick today's topic? It's quite interesting. Earlier in the week, I was inspired by a WhatsApp forward or a post that I received, which discussed very deep spiritual connections between the sun, the moon, and the human spirit, all integrated into the functioning of the human body. So I read that, and it was quite complicated, very deep, and it was compiled from information gathered from different sources, including what it refers to as the Holy Book, which I assume may be ancient Sanskrit writings, because I've heard those words elsewhere when people talk about yoga and when people discuss breathing and discuss all those things. I've heard those words, so it leads me to the conclusion that that holy book must be an ancient scripture, ancient Sanskrit scripture. And so this message was fascinating, and usually when I find something like this and it gets me going, it kind of sparked new thoughts in my mind. So I thought today would be a good opportunity for us to delve into this subject together from multiple angles. Now, in many previous webinars, I have talked about how we can find enlightenment, either through deep contemplation, meditation, or even in our active daily lives, by seeking the extraordinary in the ordinary. In our world, everything that appears ordinary is rooted in a source that is extraordinary. For example, when you are walking in a garden, or you are in the middle of nature, and you see a tree, and rather than walk past it, you actually acknowledge its presence. You look at it. You seek to communicate with it from within, because remember, the life force that is in the tree is the same life force that is in you. So we live in oneness. And as you focus on this tree and you seek to communicate with it and you open yourself to it, you begin to feel some very beautiful feelings flowing through you. That communication may not be in English or in words, but it's a very high level of communication where you know exactly what is being said to you and what you are saying. Now, when you feel the presence of the extraordinary in the ordinary, when you feel the presence of life force, even in other beings, in other aspects of nature, in water, and you engage with it, you are discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary. And that usually comes with a great sense of peace and humility. Now, a great soul once said, "Wherever I look, I see the Spirit as my friend. Wherever I look, I see the Spirit as my friend." So to help us find enlightenment through this avenue, our Creator has placed so many symbols that reflect His attributes, symbols that remind us of the extraordinary, symbols that point us to the extraordinary. And if we focus on them, they actually lead us towards a connection with the extraordinary. So meditation and prayer and contemplation are not the only ways to find light. And the scriptures say, and I paraphrase, "Indeed, we have placed signs for people who reflect." Indeed, we have placed signs for people who reflect. So let us explore a few of these signs. There are many, but let's explore just a small number. Let us start by looking at the two key cosmic bodies, the sun and the moon, which play such an important role in our lives, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. They are amongst the signs that the scriptures mention. Let us start with the sun. Now, we all know the sun in our own different and often endearing ways, and we all have a certain perception of the sun. It is the source of energy of our planet, which drives everything in our world, from providing light and heat and other forms of energy through its broad range of energy bands, and emitting solar energy that we can harness. It drives all primary processes on Earth, such as photosynthesis, where plants convert sunlight to chemical energy which sustains the food chain. In this sense, science already recognizes the sun as the primary life giver on this planet. It impacts our hormone production and governs our intricate body clock. Human bodies are synchronized with solar cycles. The sun regulates melatonin, serotonin, and cortisol, which controls sleep, mood, and energy. The sun is the regulator of life force within us. And in quantum biology, which means going down to the very, very, very small level, sunlight photons, which are basically energy of the sun that take the form of light, but they're also particles. Sunlight photons initiate quantum unity in photosynthesis. Well, let's look at what quantum unity is. You see, quantum photosynthesis is uniting of quantum particles, and we have talked about quantum particles before, which exist in every form of matter and creation. Quantum photosynthesis unites quantum particles of water, carbon dioxide, and chlorophyll with the photons from the sun to produce food. So this is now very clearly demonstrated. So the food we all consume is based on quantum unity, founded by photons of the sun. These photons essentially kickstart the quantum process that sustains life. So scientifically, the sun is the direct input of life energy into quantum biological systems. Hence, the sun can be considered the cosmic body that fundamentally drives life and all biological functions on our planet. It is pure, raw power that is typically referenced by a male gender. Now, the moon, on the other hand, is different and typically referenced via the feminine gender. Because the moon is soft and gentle, you can look at her light safely and take it in completely in tranquility. Something you cannot do with the sun, which is bright and dazzling. So the sun and the moon are in fact two basic forms of character that we find in our material world. I hadn't thought of it this way, but there are two forms of character that we find in our world. In plants, in animals, in people, and in more. We all have a fundamental character. You, me, and all creation. And they emanate either from the sun, or from the moon, or a combination of both. And being the complex creation that we are, our characters evolve and expand in so many directions, but at the core, our character is underpinned by these two cosmic bodies, the sun and the moon. Next, the moon governs ocean tides and subtly affects body fluids. Some studies have shown correlations with sleep cycles, with moods and fertility rhythms. These are forms of regulation, motions, and cycles, which is one of the myriads of things the moon does for this planet and for life, to sustain life on this planet. In physics, the moon has no intrinsic light. It reflects the sun's photons. That makes it a mediator of particles in motion. Some modern interpreters of quantum science link the moon's cyclic phases to quantum wave-particle duality, the duality of waves and particles. So at a quantum level, the two are actually very similar because they both symbolize constant motion and transformation. It sounds complex, but it is not. We all know the cycles of the moon, from the new moon all the way to the full moon and back. At a very, very small quantum level, waves and particles do exactly the same thing. It is only now that we have been able to detect it. In many cultures and traditions, the new moon is deemed as a spiritually powerful time, and prayer and meditation is encouraged at this time. Why do you think that is? You see, the moon is a filter of the light and energy of the sun. So the sun's light hits the moon, it gets filtered. And the moon sends to the earth the correct filtered energies to drive life on this planet. Scientific research is beginning to discover that the subtle energy of the moon and moonlight can excite water molecules in the seas and watercourses to break down and produce oxygen. And that makes sense. We all consume massive amounts of oxygen today. It's more than 7 billion of us, plus trees, plus all the creation. If its only source were plants, trees, and rainforests, we would all be dead by now. Water is our major oxygen source, and moonlight plays a role in its production. Now, when we look at the new moon at its smallest state, the energies it transmits are at their lowest level. Just like at 4 a.m. each day, when the energy levels of the earth are at their lowest, it is the best time for us to meditate. And this is why these moments are the best time for us to engage in spiritual thought, in prayer, and in meditation, because chaos is at its lowest level. So pure focus becomes easier. Such is the new moon too, with its low, subtle energies. I mean, at full moon, look at the tides peaking and oceans raging with maximum chaos, affecting the human mind as well. That's full moon. And then, after the huge full moon party is over, the new moon follows with calmness and tranquility, making it the best time for focused prayer. My dear friends, a very important distinction is that the moon does not emit light of its own. It filters and reflects the light of the sun. Therefore, one can argue that the light of the moon exists because of the sun. But this does not make it any less important, because a source and its dependencies make up the whole. The source is the sun, the moon is its dependency, but together they make up the whole. A source and its dependencies make up the whole. It is a fundamental truth about life in this material world. It is also a foundation of nature, and we will explore this notion further as we look at the spiritual energies that flow within us. Now, coming back to the extraordinary in the ordinary, let us look at some of the sacred symbolisms of the sun and the moon before we take a deeper dive into their spiritual connection with us. What are the sacred symbolisms that the sun projects? What dimensions of our Creator do they reveal to us? See, the sun exists on its own. It is absolute and it is independent. a characteristic we often read about in the scriptures describing our Creator or God. And let us look at a beautiful scripture we have discussed many times before in so many varying contexts, because it is so rich with spiritual knowledge. But today we can explore its message with respect to the sacred symbolisms that the sun projects to us day in and day out. The scripture says, the Creator is one. He is absolute, independent, and the origin. He was neither created, nor does he procreate. He is ever continuous. And there is none comparable to him. So that's what the verse of the scripture says. And we have explored it through very deep spiritual angles. Now, as I said before, this scripture can be viewed with messages from numerous contexts. And so let us examine its words today from a cosmic angle. The Creator is one. Well, we have one core primary source of light, which is the sun. The sun symbolizes the unity of our Creator. Of course, we have distant stars. But when we look at the planet Earth and everything that happens in it, there is one main source of light, which is the sun. So this is the first sacred symbolism of the sun. Next, the scripture says he is absolute, independent, the origin. The sun is absolute in our world, and it is independent. Its energy output is independent of anything that happens in our world. The sun does not depend on us or on anyone. It is a pure expression of independence. And that is the second symbolism of the sun, sacred symbolism. Then the reference to the origin that also points to the sun being synonymous with life force that is present in all living creation. And if we look at energy in our world, i.e. the core energy that drives and sustains life, it comes from the sun. This is the third sacred symbolism. Next, the scripture says he was neither created nor does he procreate, making him ever continuous. Now, there's so many theories of the origin of the sun and the earth, from the Big Bang theory to all kinds of hypotheses. But my dear friends, the truth is none of us were around to see the sun created. And from our vantage point, as human beings on this planet, the sun has always been there. From the time we were born to the time we will pass on, it is present and constant. We are, I would say, not in our lifetime and not anytime soon, we are never going to see baby suns coming forth or the sun being created, because the sun is absolute constancy in our lives. So this is the fourth sacred symbolism of the sun. And of course, the last statement says, he is beyond all comparison, beyond all imagination. And I don't think we as humans will ever be able to come up with anything comparable to the sun. It is the center of our cosmic existence. And all these infinite energy bands and its quantum character reflect again the characters and attributes of our Creator which lie beyond imagination. So this is the fifth sacred symbolism. And there are lots more you can come up with. So my dear friends, each day when we wake up and see the sun and take its presence for granted, it may be advisable to pause and appreciate it and recognize that it symbolizes everything that is sacred in our world and in our lives. It is the physical projection of the attributes of our Creator. It symbolizes the extraordinary. And we don't need to go to religious or holy places to find such inspirations of our Creator. They are right there, in plain sight, in a cosmic form we all know as the sun. This is why many scriptures talk about, and I paraphrase, the one who is wise and reflects on the symbols of nature discovers his or her creator evident in plain sight. So this is something for us to consider. A walk under the sun is no ordinary walk. It is filled with sacred messages. Now, let us explore some of the sacred symbolisms of the moon. Like the sun, the moon also projects some very important sacred symbols that remind us of our Creator. And whilst the sun may be the primary source of energy in our world, the moon also plays a critical role in our lives. One scripture says, the sun and the moon are orbits, signs in creation, pointing to the Creator and to the cosmic law. Beautiful. The sun and moon are orbits, signs in creation, pointing to the Creator and to cosmic law. Another scripture says, God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. And then here is another beautiful scripture which says, blessed is he who placed in the sky great stars and placed therein a burning lamp and a luminous moon. A burning lamp and a luminous moon. This leads us to a very powerful scripture we have all explored in much detail, which is the parable of light. It is the very first video in the masterclass series on the 10 stages of the soul, and it is full of rich spiritual wisdom. And I do recommend you to revisit this video and view it several times to capture more and more of its essence. There is so much to capture. So let us explore the sacred symbolisms that the parable of light projects with respect to the sun and the moon. It says, the parable of the light of the Creator is as if there were a niche, and in the niche, a lamp. The lamp is covered by glass, and the glass, as it were, shines like a brilliant star. Lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive, neither of the east nor of the west. This oil is well nigh luminous, even though fire has not touched it. Light upon light does the Creator guide unto his light those whom he wills. Now, I've shared in the video on the parable of light what I derived from it in detail after 18 years of regularly contemplating its words. I did all my research because it touched me the very first time I heard it. And I did all my research. I read so many interpretations, nothing quenched my thirst. So I meditated and contemplated on this scripture. And then one day, it appeared before me, the meaning, in a format that my scientific mind could comprehend. And I'll very briefly encapsulate it for you, because this will help show how it connects with the sun, moon, and the human spirit. So, in my vision, and I wasn't thinking about the parable of light then, but all of a sudden, it appeared before me. And I could see that the parable of the light is as if there were a niche. I could see that that niche was in the center of my forehead. So if you feel the hollow in the center of your forehead, that is the niche. And then in the niche, a lamp. Because my connection to my life force, the light of life, is that lamp. It's that light that connects me to the universe and the universal light. In the niche, a lamp. The lamp is covered with glass. Glass, because glass is a fundamental component of the earth, which is silica. So glass is made from silica, but it is covered with glass. The glass shines like a brilliant star. It doesn't say the lamp shines like a brilliant star. It says the glass shines like a brilliant star. So, through my life, I draw on the connection of life force in my body. And as I grow in light and knowledge, I too begin to become part of this light, lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive. And this is when I realized that the sacred tree is not a tree. It was my blood circulation system. My blood circulation system is a perfect tree. It is probably the most perfect tree that exists. Neither of the east nor of the west. The tiniest of veinlet on the east, on one side, will be having a corresponding veinlet on the other side. So neither of the east nor of the west is perfectly balanced. This oil is luminous, even though fire has not touched it. And that's when I realized that when you filter blood, you get plasma, which is a luminous fluid. So this oil, is luminous even though fire hasn't touched it. Now, plasma is in my blood. It's flowing everywhere. So now as you think about it, I draw life force from the universal light, connects here with my niche, which is my center, spiritual center. And then as I live life and I grow in light, I begin to shine like a brilliant star too, because our life in this world, we learn purely from exemplary learning. And so if I project light, I am projecting a certain learning. You project light, I am learning from you. So shines like a brilliant star. And because of the plasma flowing, I am able to journey my life in completion. And then, as I seek the light, with the grace of the Creator, there are stages upon stages, light upon light, that take me closer and closer to my Creator. And if I should discover that light, it will only be by His grace. Now then I wrote about the 10 stages of the soul, explaining what each of those stages were, because they are light upon light. So this is how that vision appeared to me. Now I've encapsulated a 1-hour webinar in a it's like literally 2 or 3 minutes. And as you may recall, at the beginning of the webinar today, I mentioned that my topic of today was inspired by a WhatsApp forward, which was deeply spiritual. And it was a combination of many teachings originating from what I believe, as I said earlier, were Sanskrit writings that talk about the sun and the moon being joined in our body. Their holy book, according to the Post, says in verse 759, and the sun and moon are joined. And the sun and moon are joined. And this sort of struck me as very profound. So I would like to explore this message further via the parable of light and bring it down to a level that we can all fully comprehend. So how are the sun and moon embedded in the parable of light? The parable of light says the parable of light of the Creator is as if there were a niche. And as I explained earlier, the niche is the hollow in the center of the forehead. It is our linkage with our life source. So according to the Sanskrit writings, we have a constant flow of spiritual energies of 2 streams in our bodies. These writings also talk about a niche. The first stream, the first one, is the energy of the moon stream. So you got 2 spiritual streams flowing, not visible, but ever present. And the first one is the energy of the moon stream, gentle and calm in character. And when we breathe, this stream activates our left nostril. So it activates our left nostril. And this stream remains active for 90 minutes. And when this stream is active, a person becomes calm and peaceful. Then it switches to the sun stream, which activates the right nostrils for 90 minutes, during which time a person returns to his or her normal temperament, but with access to high energy levels if they seek it. So these are the two cycles, switching over every 90 minutes in our bodies. And according to the ancient teachings, only one nostril can be active at any one point in time, except for a window, which we will discuss in a moment. But first I would like to ask, what is the symbolism of the number 90? Why 90? And in my book, The Alakansera Rise Again, I was inspired with a chapter on their numerology. Fascinating chapter, and as a scientist, I was like a kid in a candy store. You can start in their numerology, you can start with any number, regardless of the number of digits. And then you add all the digits till you sift them down to one digit from 0 to 10. For example, if your birth date is 1st of January 2001, which is 0101-2001, we add 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 equals 4. So when you add your birth date, it's a number 4. And then the chart shows that 4 represents equilibrium and neutrality. It is completely even. It is a number of fairness and justice. So if your birth date adds up to 4, you would tend to project this character. Now, the Alakansera science of numerology goes a lot deeper and a lot broader, even showing us how to convert letters in the alphabet to numbers, etc. And I invite you to read this chapter, and we will share it on our website. The numerology of the Alakansera can even help us predict the direction our decisions can lead us to. So it's also a future guide. It's a fascinating science that I thoroughly enjoyed writing about. So what do the Alakanserans' numerology say about the number 90? 9 plus 0 equals 9. The number 9 in the chart represents closeness to completion. Closeness to completion. It is a number of strength that flows into the number 10, which is comprised of 0 and 1, which are both oneness and unity. So 0 is the number of the Absolute, the origin, our Creator, and 1 is the unity of our Creator. So this makes the number 9 very special spiritually, because it flows into 10. So from this perspective, the 90 minutes of the moon stream and the 90 minutes of the sun stream make complete sense. The numbers tell us that they can lead us to the origin when we search for the light. Now let us come to the window we talked about. So when the sun and the moon streams switch, there is a 2-minute window during the switching process where they unite and become one. So during this 2 minutes switchover, the 2 minutes period while the switchover is happening, the sun and the moon streams become one. The source, i.e. the sun, and its reflection or dependency, i.e. the moon. As I said earlier, source and dependency together create the whole. So in these 2 minutes, the channel in the ethereal body, in our ethereal body, opens up and allows the word you are meditating on, we call it the linkage word, to reach the niche in the center of the forehead. So that makes the 2 minutes so important. But the sun and the moon streams have to come together. And we will also see the deepness of that spiritual dimension when they come together. But that opens the channel of the ethereal body that allows the word to rise into the center of the forehead, enabling one to flow higher into the source. And this is one way how enlightenment is experienced. So these ancient writings make a lot of sense. Even when you tie together other knowledge we have derived, they start to make more sense. So this 2-minute window, every 90 minutes, is a great opportunity, my dear friends, for us all to harness. It's a great opportunity. Now then you may ask, why the number 2? Why 2 minutes? Why not 3? Why not 4? Why not 5? According to the Alakantara numerology, the number 2 is the number of the masters. If your birth date and the letters in your name, which also have numbers, both add up to 2, you are a perfect 2, representing a master that is deeply connected to the origin or creator. And the master is the human spirit, and the origin is the source. And when they come together, one experiences enlightenment. So it makes sense that the window should last for 2 minutes, because it represents the ascension of the human spirit towards the origin. So you can now see how the ancient holy scripts that talk of the number 90 and the number 2 clearly lay out the path of enlightenment to us. And with the numerology of the Alakantara, we were able today to see this connection. Now it all ties together. It appears that we may have decoded what the WhatsApp message says. So let us further reflect on the parable of light in the context of the moon and the sun. The sun and the moon streams, as we said earlier, flow through our body and represent an integral part of our breath, providing a complete equilibrium that makes our physical bodies function with perfection. Okay? And now, as we just discussed, the teachings say that only one nostril can be active at a time. So when the moon stream is active, more oxygen is inhaled through the left nostril, and a person becomes calm and peaceful. Then after 90 minutes, the nostrils switch over and the sun stream activates in the right nostril, and a person goes back to his or her own material temperament or state of being. And at this point, they also have access to the immense powers of the sun stream. So when I reflected on this, I realized that this activation of each nostril every 90 minutes offers us a very useful opportunity to choose our state of being and anchor ourselves in it. Now, we have 2 excellent videos on anchor thought. Do visit them on our channel. In a nutshell, what is anchor thought? If I ask you, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. That's the most useless thing you could ever have said, because it means nothing. But if I ask you, how are you? And you say, I am at peace. Now, your state of being is at peace. Or you say, I am happy. You are anchored in happiness. I am inspired. You are anchored in inspiration. So anchor thought lets you define the state of being that you wish to be in. Rather than bumbling through life with random thoughts, you anchor your thought in the states of being that brings out the very best in you. And when we think of our higher self in contemplation, meditation, or prayer, the moon stream helps and enables us to change our state of being towards calmness, peace, and light. When we anchor our thoughts or state of being in this higher state, and the moon stream activates, the breathing in of extra oxygen also helps heal the body. However, when we think and function in the material realm, which is our normal temperament, and make all our normal decisions, the sun stream is active, but not as prevalent as it can be. Because amidst our material thoughts, we get so engrossed that we do not tap into the massive energy reservoir of the sun stream. We totally miss it. Accessing the power of the sun stream opens us to inspiration and enlightened thought in our conscious state. But today, most of us are unaware of how potent a force we all possess. Once in a while, we get waves of inspiration. That is when the sun stream is being accessed subconsciously, triggered by the deep focus we create while seeking answers to whatever we are working on. If you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to create something, and you're so focused, you trigger the sunstream, and the inspirations come to you. So focus is the key here. Focus well on everything you do, and you will tap into the enormous energetic reservoir that you embody. So don't bumble through life accidentally. Focus in every moment. Focus in everything you're doing. Then you are open to the sunstream. Now this begs the question, why do most of us not calm down or go into that peaceful state every 90 minutes? Why don't we experience a state of being that comes with the moon stream automatically every 90 minutes? Or why don't we experience the powerful inspirations and energies every 90 minutes when our sun stream is active? Why does that not happen automatically? I believe it may be because we are totally self-absorbed in the material world. Our material self-center rules our thoughts with a very profound grip. We find ourselves living under this dark, heavy cloud. And in the 90 minutes of sunstream, for example, if we are fortunate, some light does break through and illuminate us if we are open to it. However, if we are not open to it, it is like the sun that shone above a rain cloud for 90 minutes and no one ever saw it. Coming back to the parable of light, which talks about the niche, we can see that these ancient teachings also refer to the very same niche, because the truth is universal. And when the ethereal channel opens in the 2 minutes, one can flow in meditation into the niche and beyond. So let us explore some of the more sacred symbolisms about the sun and moon in the parable of light and see how they connect with these ancient writings. It says, the parable of the light of the Creator is as if there were a niche, and in the niche a lamp, the lamp covered with glass, and the glass shines like a brilliant star. Okay, 4 statements. We know what the niche is now. It is our connection with the light of our Creator or life force. And that is why the parable says, in the niche, a lamp. Several scriptures talk about the Creator placing the sun as a symbolic lamp in the skies. There's a connection. The parable says, this lamp is covered by glass. And as I said earlier, glass is made of silica, a core ingredient or core component of the earth, representing a material shield around the flame of the lamp. That's what the glass is. It's a material shield. You cannot reach the flame. And our thoughts and way of living in this world are such that we cannot reach the flame in the lamp, because the glass forms an impermeable material barrier. The glass also has one thing in common with the moon. The glass has no light of its own, and neither does the moon. But the glass can reflect the light of the lamp, just like the moon can reflect the light of the sun. So the glass can be considered a sacred symbolism of the moon here. This offers us a great opportunity now, because if we can contemplate or meditate during those 2 minutes of the switching process, when the sun stream, which is the lamp, and the moon stream, which is the glass surrounding the lamp, become one. The sun stream and the moon stream become one. What happens? The glass disappears and the flame of the lamp becomes accessible, because there is no glass barrier anymore for those 2 precious minutes. See how it all makes so much sense. And this happens via the open ethereal channel that the ancient scriptures mention. Next, the parable says, lit by the oil of the sacred tree, the olive. The sacred tree references the olive, and the moon does assume the shape of the olive during its cycle at various points. This is another symbolism to note. Neither of the east nor of the west. Well, the sun and the moon are both neither of the east nor of the west. They are both dynamic and in motion, and they do not stick to any one cardinal point of the compass. That is another sacred symbolism of the sun and the moon. The parable then says, whose oil is luminous, even though fire has not touched it. The moon is luminous, but no source of heat or flame has touched it. It is simply illuminated by the sun, like the luminous fluid. And like the luminous fluid, it gives off a soft, gentle light, just like the glow of luminous olive oil, which is also soft and gentle. This is another sacred symbolism of the moon. You see, they are so deep, these words. Light upon light does the Creator guide us unto His light, those whom He wills. Here, both the sun stream and the moon stream project their own lights, one radiant and bright, one soft and gentle, and they switch every 90 minutes. Bright light over soft light, bright light over soft light, and so the cycles go on. And the parable of light projects these switchovers of light upon light as sacred symbolisms of the sun and moon again. And finally, the statement, whoever he chooses, the will of the Creator, as to who experiences enlightenment, reflects the opportunity that comes from unity of the sun and moon streams in those 2 minutes. And this is not governed by the seeker. It is entirely the grace of the Creator. I hope today you've developed a new insight into very ancient scriptures, science, modernity, quantum science, Alakantara numerology, also ancient, all put together to explain things that are universally true. And that's what we have enjoyed over the last hour almost. And I'd like to conclude by thanking you all for being here, bringing your light, bringing your energy, bringing your positivity to this webinar. And I pray that the light of our Creator may always be with you, to help you, guide you, protect you, and love you always. Stay blessed.